Thanks everyone for coming out tonight, first and foremost. I'm using cards today because there's so much I want to say and there's so little time to say all of it in. But I noticed a theme in the first two presentations that I kind of play off of and build off of a little bit. That theme being community. When I started out in this thesis project, I knew I wanted to do something with AcroYoga, which is a very community-based practice. And I'd hoped to explore in this project how yoga helped influence and create community in AcroYoga. But what I found led me a little bit deeper than just AcroYoga or just modern yoga or just pre-modern yoga. I found a name for a phenomenon that I think really is present in all of those. That is flow. So before I talk anymore, just a show of hands, how many of you all have felt like a sense of complete absorption, being oblivious to time while you're doing something? Yeah. So you guys kind of get what the feeling of flow is. And it feels pretty good, right? It feels pretty natural, pretty effortless. But even the most effortless things start with at least a little bit, if not a lot of effort. And so this process of effort to effortless is what I have found and understood to be the process of creating flow. And so could you go back one, actually? So at its most basic definition, the psychologists define flow as a state of absorption or concentration and the resulting enjoyment. Enjoyment being completely different from pleasure, of like the pleasure of being hungry and then eating, or the pleasure of just resting and relaxing. That feels good, that's great, but psychologists refer to enjoyment as being pleasure that touches something really meaningful too. So enjoyment has this sense of being, sense of having personal growth or psychological growth or spiritual growth in there too, which is very relevant to yoga. It's been very relevant to my experience of yoga, and I think it's really relevant to early yogis in India as well. So what I did in my paper is explore flow in all of these, in the early yoga context, modern yoga context, and in the new evolving AcroYoga. So you can go one more this way. Yeah, go back. So the lead psychologist who spent most of his life researching this state of flow is a man named Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, and he actually ran into Carl Jung as a teenager and was kind of influenced by him and has spent his entire life since then researching this state of life and psychological flow. And he identified 9 key pieces of flow, which I don't have time to really jump into as they relate to yoga as much as I would like, but just a few things to point out. Autotelic experience is a fancy way of saying action for the sake of action. And anyone who's read the Bhagavad Gita in this room, which is probably a lot of people, that nishkama karma, desireless action, is autotelic experience. You see this a lot in young children who are playing. Children don't say, "Oh man, I failed at playing today." You play for the sake of play. And that's autotelic experience. It's action, it's doing something for the sake of doing it. Another pretty relevant one, challenge skill balance, you can see here. So basically this is just saying that a lot of challenge met with a lot of skills to meet that challenge is where you're going to be most likely to find flow. What helped me understand this a little bit more was thinking about the opposite, which is something like watching television. So watching television doesn't require much challenge, doesn't require many skills, and it can be pleasurable for a while, but then you're just kind of like, meh. Like it can leave you just kind of in an apathetic state, whereas flow is other than that. Other two key things I want to point out are very interconnected are that relate to flow are clear goals and concentration. So when you have a goal, something very meaningful to you, and you have concentration upon that goal, it offers the experience of filtering out other stimuli that are not relevant to you. Because we are bombarded with tons and tons and tons of information throughout the day, all day, every day. But when we have like a sense of focus, something upon which we can meaningfully concentrate on, that other stuff just can go to the side, and that helps create flow, that sense of being in the zone. That's all I wanted to say here. Oh yes, so early yogis really got that, the value of concentration. You can go to the next slide. One word that pops up quite a bit is ekagrata. Definitely see that in the Yoga Sutras. It is understood to underlie concentration, but ekagrata is a one-pointed state of focus. And I think it's very beautiful and very missing a lot in our society. And so basically, in a nutshell, what I talk about with flow in early yoga, in pre-modern yoga, before any Western influence, and again, this is a very, very broad, much more broad than I delve into in my paper, but samadhi, the state of spiritual liberation, is a concentration upon the divine to find a sense of union with the divine. And so applying the theory of flow to this, you become absorbed in concentration upon the divine, and you find a sense of order and consciousness, which offers a sense of enjoyment in that. And through continued practice, parallels I'm noticing at least point to flow, or samadhi, or the absorption with the divine as being kind of a state of flow, really. And Patanjali in the Yoga Sutras even had words for this. He had samprajnata samadhi, which is a state of samadhi or liberation based on things, based on the physical, which could happen but was not lasting, did not continue. Asamprajnata samadhi, however, is a state of liberation, a state of concentration, without use of any physical influence. It was all concentration. And I think Patanjali was onto something. So I can go on to the next. And so looking at flow in the context of modern yoga, when yoga moved westward, we don't have the same deep spiritual values that you find in India. Just completely different context in the West here. And so what has happened is yoga has definitely become more postural based, more body based. Body breath is what you hear in studio classes. And that is still flow too. It's flow, but it's flow as experienced in the body. And that is absolutely amazing. What do I want to say about that? Yeah. So, yeah, modern yoga, flow through awareness of body and breath. But there's one more little piece that I kept coming back to and kept thinking, was that I've felt flow, I've felt this state, but I felt it in a group before. I felt it in community, specifically through AcroYoga, which I know a lot of you guys know that I adore. I can go to the next slide. So, collective flow is, yeah, that's you right here. So, collective flow is is far less studied than flow done alone. There's a little bit of research being done on collective flow, especially as it relates to organizational psychology and the flow of people working together in the same working environment. Like Google really pays attention to this type of stuff. It really paying attention to how people can work well together. But beyond that, there's not much out there yet. And so the biggest difference between flow alone and flow in a group environment is that in a collective flow, people serve as agents of flow for each other. And so it's like it's the concentration upon a shared goal in which two or more people are pouring the same amount of effort, the same amount of energy, the same amount of concentration, the same amount of activity into one thing together. And when people are all involved in that activity together and have that shared sense of focus and goals together, then collective flow is going to arise. And like I said, I've definitely found that to be the case in an AcroYoga play context. So, I'll end there, and there's so much more I would say, but I know some of you guys have not seen AcroYoga before, so
yay!
And actually, two of my fantastic AcroYoga teachers have come. And
You they look familiar.
You guys would be even better demos if you guys want to come.
I think you'll be perfect.
Okay. Come on up. So, the style we practice, the intention can be very solar, very active, or it can be very therapeutic and mellow and lunar. Do you want to do the demo of both, or just the what the other class?
You're the Jedi.
Okay. So. No, you come up. Yeah. Good job. Yeah. He's doing that to the work. So that one's a little more, that's a warm-up in a very general sense. But it can take the form of like working together in like a more acrobatic sense, or it can just be like a shared partner flow too. So like this is from those ladies back there. You can help each other stretch in ways that you can't really stretch alone.
You want to do the other side then.
Any questions?
Yeah, I have 3 questions I'll ask about your presentation.
Okay.
When you say flow is union with the divine, are you taking that in a dualistic sense, or are you using that as an absorption?
I was looking at it from more of an absorption standpoint.
Because if you use it, if you say with the divine, that introduces an ambiguity in terms of what is then the semantic meaning for divine?
Mm-hmm.
How do you construe that?
Well, I delve into that in my paper because I go into much more specific detail investigating what that would mean in different contexts, whether dualistic or not. So,
And is flow equivalent to, or is samadhi, concentration, an accessory, and if so, a necessary accessory for you to realize flow as you have described it in this presentation?
I think it's the means as being the same as the end result. I don't think it's an accessory at all. I think that it is the state of concentration that leads to absorption.
Are you defining samadhi as flow?
That's something I still haven't entirely decided yet. I go back and forth. I think, if not the same, very similar.
And lastly, since you referenced the Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 2, beginning with shloka 44 and etsek, I think you will find that it's not action for the sake of action. It is action without regard for the fruits of that action.
Yes.
Which is I think a different.
Yes, you're
construction.
absolutely correct in that. You are absolutely correct in that, and that's very general, perhaps poor phrasing on my part, but it is exactly that. It is in the context of the Bhagavad Gita that Arjuna was presented with following his dharma, following his path, not for the sake of acting, but without
regard to the results.
exactly. Mm-hmm.
You said there's little, I couldn't quite get it, but little study or whatever on collective flow.
Mm-hmm.
Seems to me collective flow is obvious in many places in this world, but most obvious is team sports.
Yes, exactly. That's the other place that you find lots of studies on collective flow is sports are a great way to get a taste of this because, can you go back, actually? This one, yeah. Sports are a great way of challenging people, either physically or mentally. They offer the structure of shared goals, like the rules of the sport, the rules of the game offer that for you, so you don't even have to negotiate that with other people. It's just there for you. It's there for people to engage with, especially if done in like a playful capacity, like without